In this video, I'm going to walk you through the steps of bringing a Revit file into the project. The file is an elevator and was downloaded from a manufacturer's website. So in the assignment, you will find the link for this Revit file. Once you've gotten there and downloaded it to your device, let me repair this and then we'll get started in moving this. My slab. Okay, so I shifted the slab back where it was supposed to be located. Actually, it looks like I need to move it a little bit more. Okay, ready to go. So I had created this elevator shaft previously, and now that I have an elevator that I'm going to use, I'm going to bring it in and I'll need to make some adjustments to this. So what you want to do is go to Insert, Load Family, search for the file that you downloaded, and from there, it will load it into the file, your current file. So it's called Schindler 3100 BIM Center Right. And so I'm going to bring that in here, and what it's going to do is upgrade the file from 2020 to 2025, which is what I'm using now for this project. Right. It will take a few minutes to go through that process. Once it has been loaded, we're going to go to Architecture, to Components. So this file that was brought in was a family, and in that family are a series of components. So you will see that they were all brought in. Let's see if I can find them here. I've stayed where I was. Okay, so it's just the one component. So for some reason it's grayed out, and I need to figure out what happened when it was brought in. Okay, so when you click on, you need to click on the 3100. So I was not doing correctly. And then I'm going to roughly place it in the shaft. So the white area is the shaft that I had planned on. Okay, so this red dashed line came with the component, and that is the actual size of the shaft. So what I need to do is kind of position it a little bit better. I'm going to go to the Move tool, click here on this midpoint, and place it at the middle of my shaft. Now, what you can see is that the shaft that's required for this particular elevator is a little bit bigger in this direction, and it's a little bit smaller in the north-south direction. So it needs to be a little bit bigger in the east-west direction, but smaller in the north-south. So I'm going to click on this wall, and I'm going to move it from this point to this point. And same thing over here, move this from here to here. Oops, let's try it again. Make sure you're snapping to an endpoint or something that you can. Now, we have a couple of options here. This wall here can either move in, but if you have a larger space that you're trying to fill, so it could be like that. Control Z. If for some reason you have, like extra space behind here and there's nothing that you can't really shift the wall to, like, let's say, for example, that my wall was actually over here. What I can do is create an empty shaft in the back, and this would be something fairly common. If I go to Architecture and Wall, basically what I would be doing, and I'll just show you this with some kind of generic wall type. Let's say a generic 5-inch wall, and we'll get into the details of that. and I could put a wall here. So what would happen in that extra space? It's possible that you could run some mechanicals in there. So I would, you want the shaft to be on those red lines, but I could have a secondary shaft that could be used for other purposes if I needed to fill that space. Or it could just be filled with nothing. So now what I'm going to do is, because I don't really have anything that's kind of limiting how large or small my shaft is, I'll just make it exactly the size. Right, so there we have this elevator, and what I would suggest you do at this point would be to sort of save your file. And what we're going to do next is to look at this in section. So once it's saved, but I have this section I've been using, and I'm just going to slide it over here. I believe it is section number 3. And I'm going to zoom in a little closer. So this is a section through the elevator shaft. What we see here is that the elevator is going below level 1, which is common. You normally would have underneath an elevator what's called an elevator pit. So these walls would actually go all the way down, and you would have a slab, so they would basically excavate a hole for the elevator shaft. Now, we're not going to actually show this elevator in section, so we won't be making these adjustments, but we will need to make some changes to the elevator component that came into the file. As you can see, it's going up much higher than we need, so we will be changing some of its parameters. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on this elevator. I'm going to edit the type. And you don't need to make a duplicate or anything like that. We're only going to have one elevator in here. You scroll all the way down, and you see something called travel height. So that is basically the total overall floor-to-floor dimension. So we have 30 feet in this component right now from here from level 1 all the way up to where it's floating up there. But our floor to floor is only 9 feet 7 inches, so I'm going to change that to 9 feet 7 inches by, and let's make that change. And okay, so you can see that it dropped out. All right, so now the elevator has its pits down below, but it also has some of the equipment associated with the elevator that's above it. And this would also be something that's common. As you can see, it's going up higher than my roof. So I have a flat roof. I'm going to take this, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to hide this category of the massing beyond. What needs to happen, and let's take a look at this in 3D, as it pops up above the roof, is I'm going to need to extend these walls through the roof. So what I'm going to start off by doing, and this may or may not work with your project if you have a pitched roof, and we can kind of look at that together, is I'm going to zoom in here, and I have what I was using as my roof level. Let's see, where is it? Click on it. Once I have the walls below placed where I want them to be, what I can do is click on that upper level, edit the boundary, and create an opening for those walls to come through, and hit the check mark. I will detach targets from there. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to my section, and I'm going to click on, first of all, I'm going to measure something. How high up does that shaft need to be? 3 feet 1.5 inches, but I'm going to have some kind of roof up there, so I want to make it a little bit thicker. So what do we have? If I use the same roof, which I probably don't need one quite this thick, I might use a generic roof material for this, just to have some closure to the top of it. So what I'm going to do is, you could probably do this all in one, but I'll just do one, at least this first one. Oops. I'm going to change the top offset to 4 feet and apply. Okay, so now those go up, and you would do that for all of the walls surrounding this. Maybe it's easier to do this in hold down the control key, select these, and change them all to 4 points. Right? Look at it in 3D. And there we have these walls coming up, and I just need to put some kind of roof in there. So I'm going to go to L3, and I'm going to go to architecture, and again, I will just put a floor in here since it's flat. If I got to a point later where I was doing more detailing of this, I would perhaps be a little bit more particular about which one. So let's say we just put the concrete roof in there. Let's change it to a different, let's do 4-inch. And I will make a boundary in here. And I will also set the check mark and then go to the section. I'm going to need to, I'm going to not attach it. I'm going to go back to my section 3. You can see it's down here. I just need to move it up. I'll move it up the minimum that I need to. See, 3 feet 5.5. Click on this. Pull up 5 feet 3.5 inches. How did I mismeasure? Just subtract some dimension from that. So it's 10, 5, 5. My calculations are not great. So let's see. Let's see. There we go. Not exactly what I did, but so we have this enclosure that covers that portion. And just, you know, FYI, there's always space above an elevator in case someone is working in the elevator shaft. And obviously you want to give some space for that individual. Right, so there we have it. Elevator brought in. And again, if you have some different configuration or you want to make some variation to what I've shown here, let's talk about it in class.